Well, at least to the fathers. All right, I've long advocated that we ought to pass the fair tax. Now, that would eliminate all taxes on income, savings, dividends, capital gains, inheritance, and investments. And it would replace these penalties on our productivity with a tax on our consumption at the retail level. There's an important benefit of the fair tax that we, I think, can all really embrace. It eliminates the IRS. It's a good reason for it, right? Well, in light of the illegal and unethical activities of the IRS in relationship to conservative, pro-life, and pro-Israel groups, and their reckless disregard of the taxes they take from us by spending $50 million on their fun little outings that involve luxury hotels, line dancing classes, and swag bags, maybe, just maybe, the public is ready to end the legalized theft of our finances and our freedom. You see, another benefit of getting rid of the IRS is stopping the government threat of losing tax-exempt status to shut down the voices of churches. Now, I want you to think carefully about this. And let me say, I doubt everybody's going to agree with me. But maybe it's time that churches quit caring about their tax-exempt status and care more about being unfettered to speak with absolute freedom and clarity on the moral issues of the day. By the way, I brought this issue up last week when I spoke to the pastors at the Southern Baptist Convention in Houston. Now, I know that I've never given a dime of my tithe to my church for the tax consequences. Because for Christians, giving isn't about getting the government's blessing, but God's. And by the way, if somebody gives money... if somebody gives money to God solely for the tax benefits, then maybe that person ought to keep their money. They, frankly, need it worse than God does. You see, the empty threat that's caused many a pastor or church to water down their message in confronting the culture because of fear of reprisals from the IRS, well, that would stop. It isn't the place of any agency of the government to evaluate the content of a pastor's sermon and determine if that is acceptable to the government. Frankly, even if the fair tax isn't passed immediately, why not end the federal government subsidies to all entities and organizations, religious or not, and let freedom ring? Now, if you believe in something, be it political, spiritual, even economic, then pay for it. Leave the government out of it. And for those who fear that churches would pay huge taxes, fear not. Churches use their funds for missions, staff, their facilities, and ministries. There's little, if anything, left over for most congregations. Of course, it would mean that contributions wouldn't be deductible, but there's already a limit on how much one can deduct, so the benefit isn't that big. As Daniel rejected the king's food, maybe people of faith ought to reject the government's goodies, but in exchange, gain absolute freedom. And instead of worrying about whether our message is going to be threatened with government penalty, we just tell the government to put it where the sun don't shine. What we say and what we do in our churches ought to be driven by our faith, not by the government limits on our freedom.